Welcome to this YouTube channel. In this video we are going to talk about the top 10 facts about Khosrow the First, the Immortal Soul. So before starting this video, like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. Khosrow the First, also spelled Khosrow, traditionally known by his epithet of Anushirvan, the immortal Khosrow the First, also written Khosrow, was the Sasanian king of kings of Iran from 531 to 579, and was known by his epithet Anushirvan, the Immortal Soul. Khavad I, r. 488 to 496, 498 to 531, was his father and he succeeded him. Here are 10 things you should know about him. Number 10. Khosrow I inherited a resurgent kingdom at odds with the Byzantines, so he made a peace treaty with them in 532, known as the Perpetual Peace, in which the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I paid the Sasanians £11,000 of gold. After that, Khosrow concentrated on consolidating his influence, by assassinating conspirators including his uncle Bawi. Khosrow broke the peace treaty and declared war on the Byzantines in 540. After being dissatisfied with the conduct of the Byzantine clients and vassals, the Ghassanids, and being encouraged by Ostrogoth envoys from Italy. He sacked Antioch, bathed in the Mediterranean Sea at Seleucia Pieria, and held chariot races at Apamea, where he defeated the Blue faction, which had been backed by Justinian. Invading Lazica and making it an Iranian protectorate in 541, he started the Lazic War. The two empires managed to put an end to their wars in Mesopotamia and Syria in 545, but they continued to fight in Lazica. In 557, a ceasefire was declared, and in 562, a 50-year peace treaty was signed. Number 9. Justin II, Justinian's heir, violated the peace treaty by sending a Byzantine army into the Sasanian province of Arzanene in 572. Khosrow sacked and conquered the vital Byzantine fortress city of Dara, the following year, driving Justin II insane. The war will last until 591, even after Khosrow had passed away. Khosrow's fights did not only take place in the west. To the east, Khosrow defeated the Hephthalite Empire, which had suffered a number of defeats on the Sasanians in the 5th century, including the death of Khosrow's grandfather Peroz I, in an alliance with the Gokturks. Yemen was captured by Iranian forces commanded by Juarez, who routed the Aksamites to the south. Khosrow I was well known for his virtues, intelligence, and character. During his ambitious rule, he carried out his father's ambitious project of massive improvements in the empire's civil, military, and economic facets, rising welfare and taxes, raising a skilled army, and founding or restoring numerous towns, palaces, and infrastructures. He was interested in literature and poetry, and art and science flourished in Iran during his rule. Khosrow was the most famous of the Sasanian rulers, and his name became a title for the Sasanian kings, much like Caesar's in Roman history. He has been dubbed the next Cyrus as a result of his achievements. Number 8. Khosrow I is said to have been born between the years 512 and 514 in Ardistan, a town in the Spahan province of central Iran. The town, which dates back to the Achaemenid period, flourished during Khosrow's reign, and included a fire temple, which was said to have been built by the mythical Kianian king K-Barman, from whom the Sasanians claimed descent. Khavad I, the reigning Sasanian Shah, had a younger son called Khosrow. His mother was an Ispabudan princess and the sister of Bawi, the most powerful Iranian general. The Ispabudan were one of Iran's 7 great houses, which comprised the Sasanian Empire's elite aristocracy. They were referred to as kin and spouses of the Sasanians, because of their high social standing. The family also occupied the powerful title of Spabed of the West, which included the southwestern regions of the Sasanian Empire, Qawwaran. Number 7. Marbad, who served as the negotiations diplomats alongside Siyavush, accused the latter of deliberately sabotaging the talks. More charges were leveled against Siyavush, including the worship of new deities, and the burying of his dead child, all of which were against Iranian rule. As a result, Siyavush was almost certainly a Mazdakite, a religious sect that Khavad had once embraced but had since abandoned. Despite the fact that Siyavush was a close friend of Khvad's, and had assisted him in escaping from captivity, the latter did not attempt to avoid Siyavush's execution, ostensibly to limit Siyavush's considerable authority, as the head of the Sasanian army, a position despised by the other nobles. Siyavush was put to death, and his position was abolished. Despite the failure of the treaties, full-scale warfare on the major eastern border did not break out until 530. In the years since, the two sides have chosen to wage war by proxy, using Arab allies in the south and Huns in the north. Number 6. Mazdak was the name of the chief leader of Mazdakism, a theological and philosophical teaching that advocated for the sharing of money, people, and land, and was an archaic version of communism. Mazdakism has not only metaphysical and cosmological elements, but also political and social ramifications, which were to the nobility's and clergy's detriment. According to modern historians Touraj Darai and Matthew Canepa, the practice of exchanging women was most definitely an exaggeration, and slander stemming from Mazdak's decree loosening marriage laws to help the lower classes. This was most certainly used as a strategy by powerful families to undermine their lineage and advantages. The revolution was used as a political instrument by Kavad to limit the influence of the aristocracy and clergy. Kavad was able to make reforms with less effort since the aristocracy and clergy were weakened. By the 520s, the changes were raging, and he was no longer able to use Mazdak. As a result, he reportedly dropped out of the Mazdakites' ranks. Mazdak and his disciples were slandered in a debate in which not only the Zoroastrian priesthood, but also the Christian and Jewish ones, took part. Number 5. According to the Shahnameh, Book of Kings, published centuries later by the medieval Persian poet Ferdowsi, Kavad had Mazdak and his allies sent to Khosrow, who had them executed by burying their heads in a walled orchard with only their feet visible. You will find trees there that no one has ever seen and no one has ever heard of, except from the mouth of the ancient sages, Khosrow told Mazdak, as he invited him to look around his yard. Mazdak cried and passed out after seeing the bodies of his supporters. Khosrow put him to death by having his feet fastened to a gallows, and having his men fire arrows at him. The narrative's veracity is debatable. Ferdowsi based the Shahnameh on much earlier accounts of events, so the story may be based on contemporary recollections. Number 4. Kavad fell ill and died in 531, when the Iranian army was besieging Martyropolis. Khosrow replaced him, but since his domestic situation was precarious, he sought to make peace with the Byzantines, who, under Emperor Justinian I, r. 527 to 565, were probably more concerned with reclaiming the lost western half of the Roman Empire than with fighting Iran. Khosrow was considered to be more conciliatory than his father by the Byzantine envoys Rufinus, Hermogenes, Alexander, and Thomas, and an understanding was quickly reached. Justinian would pay 110 centenaria, £11,000, in gold, as a donation to the defense of the Caucasus passes against the barbarians who lived beyond, and the Dux Mesopotamia's foundation would be relocated from Dara to Constantinople. The two kings promised mutual support and would once again regard each other as equals. Khosrow initially declined to return the two Lazic forts, insisting instead that the Byzantines return the two other forts they had seized in Sasania and Armenia. Justinian agreed at first, but then changed his mind, resulting in the deal being terminated. However, in the summer of 532, Hermogenes and Rufinus were able to convince Khosrow to agree to a complete exchange of the occupied forts, as well as allowing the expelled Iberian rebels to either stay in the Byzantine Empire, or return safely to their homes, thanks to a new embassy headed by Hermogenes and Rufinus. Number 3. Khosrow, like the rest of the Sasanian kings, was a Zoroastrian. Since the 5th century, the Sasanian monarchs have been mindful of the importance of religious minorities in the kingdom, and have attempted to integrate them into a system of administration in which everyone will be considered equally as Mard, Zan, i.e., man, woman resident, of the empire, according to legal standards. Jews and Christians, in particular, had adopted the idea of Iran, and declared themselves to be citizens of the country. The head of the Church of the East had the rank of Catholicos of Iran, RN Catholics, by the time of Khosrow. Number 2. During his long reign, Khosrow is reported to have ordered several public works projects, including bridges, roads, dams, and walls. Khosrow had a series of walls constructed and fortified throughout his kingdom to defend Iran's borders, similar to the Great Wall of China and Hadrian's Wall in northern England. He built it on all four sides of the kingdom, rather than just one. According to Middle Persian accounts, Khosrow I ordered the building of the Great Wall of Gorgan, which stretched from the Caspian Sea's eastern coast to prevent nomadic tribes, like the Hephthalites, from invading. To defend the city from incursions by Alans, Turks, Saras, Khazars, and other northern neighbors, he had the Derbent Wall strengthened in the northwest. Number 1. The reign of Khosrow I influenced a large number of Islamic books, including the Kitab al-Taj of Jahiz, for example. Since there are so many Islamic texts that mention Khosrow's reign, it can be difficult to tell the difference between reality and fiction. During his rule, the Silk Road between ancient China, India, and the Western world was encouraged, if not actually built. According to Richard Fry, Khosrow's motivation for fighting the Byzantine Empire, as well as the Eastern Hephthalites, was to gain Sasanian supremacy over this trading road. What do you think about this video? Do let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.